thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
I'm doing this interview series where talking to all sorts of interesting people, and you're clearly one of those. So thanks for being here. I mean, I wanted to just kick off, if you can take us back to the very beginning of Streat.
Yep.
And what was that first moment that the seed
Yeah.
was germinating in your mind, and what was the context there? What was going on for you and for your other colleagues?
That seed was planted in Vietnam.
Okay.
I was working, doing some volunteer work over there. Just so you kind of know, background, I'm a scientist by training,
Yes.
so I was working at the CSIRO at the time, but doing volunteer work in Vietnam. And I walked into a cafe, not kind of knowing what the cafe was, and ordered a meal. And as I sat waiting for my meal to come out, I read this little postcard on the table that said, "We're a social enterprise, and this is a venture that helps homeless young people."
Yeah.
And it was just this epiphany, and it was just a combination, I think, of factors. If I try and analyse it now, I think it was the first time I'd ever knowingly run into a social enterprise.
Yeah.
So it was not only an awareness that actually you can solve a social issue using the marketplace.
Yes.
But there was something extraordinarily powerful about meeting the young people and then having the product that I was buying in front of me and having had the conversation with the young person who was serving me, and all of those parts of the model kind of being so visual and obvious and connected all at the same time.
Yes,
and for me, the result was, an incredibly, emotional outpouring, and I just sat crying into my spring rolls.
Yes, I remember myself an experience like that in Cambodia, although I didn't end up going to start one. So you can see how it's not necessarily just that experience, because this social enterprises have existed for a long time.
Absolutely.
And in a way, what you're describing is, in the literature they call reverse innovation, where you get an idea from the developing world and then apply it into the developed world, which is another interesting twist there. But because people like me and many others had that experience but didn't go and do this, what's that difference, do you think, in terms of the heart and the head when it came to that experience? What triggered that change?
I've never ever been interested in business as a way of making money. I've always been interested in solving problems. Yeah. So the CSIRO was a really good place for me to be, big, it's seemingly intractable problems that you're trying to solve. So that was a really good background, thinking about what it was that was important and what are the problems that we want to fix. Yeah. But I'd also spent a lot of time in my weekends and also after hours volunteering for small arts organisations or being on the board of places. So I was forever used to trying to find a little bit more money to do it, something small and do the next little thing, but you're forever just trying to survive. Yes. And in that, traditional non-profit sort of environment, every year you've just got this most enormous hill to climb because just to keep the doors open and it's all survive.
About winning the money.
Yeah, to survive that process of just the treadmill of competitive granting and trying to get that forever. So I had lots and lots of experience at doing that. Yes. Probably a good decade, I'd say, of doing that stuff. So it was like that, epiphany moment in Vietnam. Part of the epiphany was realising you could transact in the marketplace and have a product rather than chasing money. Yes. And for me, that was so significant because I was often the one writing the grants. Yes. So I'm quite a good grant writer. So it's not that I'm shit at it and then it was like, okay, I better find another way of doing it. It just made sense. Yeah. And I think the other realisation, even though that didn't happen at that moment, but it happened not too long after it, was thinking actually you could completely wean yourself off grant dependency. And imagine if you didn't, you could make all of your money to as the engine to fuel your social, your social good. Yes. It's like, and that would be, the only thing that you had to do. Yeah. Now that it sounds kind of easy to do. Yeah. All you do is just, run a business and you get all this money and then do, good social stuff. It's really, really, really hard to do the business. Yes. But I've always been really entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
So I've been building things. You know, at Cyro, I would say intrapreneurial.
Yes.
You know, I'd see a problem, I'd go and say, can I fix that problem? Build teams, build projects. So there was always an enormous amount of building within the organisation, but also outside. You know, I was helping build small startup arts organisations and arts projects.
So there's a kind of a set of things that you've mentioned there. I mean, one of them is, you're interested in social organisations. So that was something that desire for
and that's always
good.
been there. Yeah. From about 16, that's been there.
They say that about 30% of people have that. You know, not everybody, but you know, a good chunk of us have that. But then you also had that, as you say, that epiphany, that kind of emotional connection to it.
Yes.
And that that thing that appealed to you about, you know, making a business sustainable and run and do social good, clearly.
Yes.
And it's a huge movement around the world now. I mean, it's such a thing that seems so obvious to people.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm quite interested. I mean, you're talking about your background in the science space, how that kind of scientific way of thinking helps around social problem solving as well, because you know, a public body trying to do public good, but with a scientific approach. I mean, that makes me think of modern ways of doing philanthropy, for example. I mean, how do you connect the science and the social together in your mind?
It's interesting, because if I look back, what's always been there is always science and always the arts. Yeah. So I flipped a coin to work out if I was going to become a scientist or an artist. Yeah. So, and even at university, I attempted to do, I would have done a double degree in arts if I could have, but, you know, that was just too progressive and crazy, you know, when I went to uni. Yeah.
Another institution that needs some innovation.
Oh my God.
We'll talk about that later.
So there was, what's been key all the way through is a cross-disciplinary, you know, bringing unusual groups of people that haven't normally, you know, worked together and see the world through really different lenses, bringing them together to try and work on projects and collaborate.